Okay, we just finished up, I think last week, talked to you about the organized non-social offender. And so now what we're going to go ahead and do is go forward and talk about basically the material that you should be able to cover during your Chapter 7. For those of you who are reading the Profiling Violent Crimes by Holmes and Holmes, um, a lot of that same material will be covered there. So either way. But yeah, we're going to cover basically serial murderers and the different um, types that you have. Because remember, the classifications are the um, disorganized asocial and organized non-social. That's your category. Your type is going to be what we're going to start discussing now, or at least getting into. So that being said, I want to go ahead and get started on the homicide aspect of it. A lot of people don't necessarily know the specific uh, definition of what a serial murderer or serial killer is, and a lot of times we put people in that category that truly don't belong. For example, something that if you've watched the Netflix Mindhunter, if you've been reading the book that I've suggested for you and strongly suggested because you guys have quizzes over that information, uh, it talks a little bit about, especially though the uh, series on Netflix talks about, Charlie Manson, um, and a lot of people are like, oh, he's a serial killer. He's actually not. Um, Now, did he lead uh, an occult that ended up leading to the death of multiple people? Yes, but he technically is not a serial killer, serial murderer, or anything like that. Nut job, yes, but just thought I'd throw it out there. Uh, and even in some respects, Ed Gein is kind of on the outskirts of being a true serial killer. So, all right, so let's go ahead and talk about the definition though itself. In the past, it used to be considered 3, but now they've actually backed it down. It's been a little while now, but they backed it down to 2 victims. There has to be separate instances, so it's not like I walk into an office and shoot 2 people, or if I walk in on my, if I'm married and I walk in on my spouse, end up shooting her and the individual she's with. That's not serial murder. For one, it's considered a crime of passion, but other than that, it's also considered at the same time. Same thing goes with, you see these people, if they say they're upset about life in general, they may kill their spouse or family, but then they'll go to work and kill people there, or school shootings, things like that. Those are all basically either spree type killings, or if there is say someone has committed multiple murders in different time frames, they aren't connected to the same justification, same, if you want to call it signature, the reasoning why. Just because someone, say is a hitman, doesn't mean that they are actually a serial killer. Okay, Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, is one of the rare exceptions to that. But I just wanted to throw that out there. But there had to be separate instances with at least 2 victims, and there has to be what we call a cooling off period. Now, the cooling off periods, that will vary based on the type of, if you want to say, the category and personality of the person itself. You have also, some of them, it just depends on what type they fit into. But a lot of times you're looking at least a cooling off period of about 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes that can last months. Sometimes it can last years. And then in the case of, and I don't want to get into rape too quick because we're talking about homicide right now, but rape, serial rape specifically, is typically more so like, say, once every, whether it be 1 to 3 weeks. It happens a little more often. But going back to the whole cooling off periods, you want to go back in history and talk about, say, Jack the Ripper. Yeah, he had, it covered a span of, I believe, essentially 3 months. A little bit, I'm not going to get exact on the exact dates or anything like that, but it's close to that time frame. And the problem with it was, people like, oh, well, there were two murders that were in the same night, so how can that be serial murder? Well, if you look into the investigation, basically what happened was he was interrupted during the first murder of that night or evening, and then that same later in the night or almost early morning, to be closer to being more accurate. Um, since he was interrupted the first time, he had a second victim that he needed to, in essence, fulfill what he was trying to accomplish. So that can happen, and that's not breaking the idea of a cooling off period. But in most cases, if you look at the rest of his murders, as well as most other serial murders, you're going to have a cooling off period between victims. Same thing goes with whether it be a Zodiac killer, who at different times killed multiple people in one scene. Okay, so either way, we'll go on from cooling off period. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a definition of a serial murderer. And the four types that we're going to talk about, and we'll get to, I'm going to try to get through two of them if I can. I may be stuck with only getting through the first one as we go through this, but visionary, and I will go ahead and have separate slides for each of these. So you have the visionary, missionary, hedonistic, and then you have your power and control. Okay, don't worry about trying to write all this stuff down. If you're taking notes, you can write it down as we talk about them individually. So visionary, the easiest way to think about this is they believe that they are receiving visions and or auditory messages from, a lot of times they'll say it's from God or from a demon, from Satan. There have been some that have said they've received messages from outer space. So needless to say, these are the type of individual who typically falls under the category in terms of mental health, typically has schizophrenia, different varieties of it. Okay. But they may, like I said, a lot of times it's at minimum an auditory hallucination. We've had some in the past where, even though it was a farce that Dave Berkowitz tried to say that, he was told by dogs or a dog and to kill people. He later on admitted that was a whole made up story just for fun, essentially. But there have been reported testimonies or statements given by serial killers who would classify as visionaries, because they said that there's one in particular who said that he only felt safe from the demons whenever he was basically on public transportation, so buses, trains, subways, things like that. But then what he said was anytime he got out of that, he would always be harassed or chased or bothered by demons. Okay, so what ended up leading to any murders was, in order to get these demons to stop bothering him, he would, there were different times where he was chase them into buildings, and then he ultimately say the demon would run into a particular apartment building, so he would follow it, and then that demon would, in essence, take possession of or go into the body of an individual who he ended up killing, because he in his mind was trying to kill the demon, which ended up being, for him, it was, long story short, he was actually murdering and sexually assaulting some older women in his apartment complex and in his neighborhood. But yeah, he was, and I say older, I mean like 70 or older type of victims. So, and he was in his, I believe, early 20s, maybe mid 20s. So either way, that's an example of visionary. They are the ones who feel like they're being told to do something. Okay, so keep that in mind. Visionary is someone who's told that they, by either what they believe to be God, a demon, Satan, some they would consider external voice or power telling them to do something. Okay, I'm going to put some of this information up for you, but nonetheless. So let's see. I got to focus on some things about. Okay, down here where it says truly out of touch with the reality. Yeah, these people, due to their mental illness that they are suffering from, they have no concept of, that first of all, what they're hearing likely isn't real. Okay, and that they don't realize what they are. They claim that what they are doing is something that they don't necessarily want to do or don't know that that's what they are actually doing. So that's something else to keep in mind. Since they see it as a job, something they're being told or commanded to do, they just do their job and do what we call a quick kill. It's not like they're not going to keep their victims for very long. They're not going to try to torture them. They're not going to keep them, tied up or hidden away somewhere. This is something that is quick, typically not planned out. So this is why they fall into the category of a disorganized asocial offender. Typically, they'll be the person that will go and find a victim somewhere because, like they won't go out searching for, I'm looking for this type of victim. Okay. They'll be out and something, whether it be something they hallucinate as being, like I said, a demon or something like that, or if it is an order they receive of killing a particular person or type of person, that's what they do. And it's very spontaneous, and it goes back to the disorganized asocial offender. There's not much planning to it, and they have very little touch with reality, if any. So that's just stuff to be aware of with visionary. I hope you understand that really well. If you don't have a clear understanding of visionary, please email me, contact me with some way, and I'll help explain it, or try to. Okay, so I don't have a whole lot extra time, but I'm going to try to go into mission. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put the details down so you can see it here. Whoops, sorry about that. So mission, this is where instead of getting an order from some other area, whether it be from God, demon, Satan, etc., like I mentioned before with the visionary, a mission is something that the killer decides on his own, because they're typically male, decides on his own that he needs to do to eradicate a particular type of person, a particular group, things on those lines. So honestly, a lot of times it happens to be either women, and more specifically, they may pick women like prostitutes or promiscuous type of females, or you name it. They have their own little idea in their head. Doesn't always make sense to us, but their idea in their head is to get rid of a particular type of person, and they have in their own mind some reason behind it. They are well aware of it. They may have mental illness, but they, unlike visionary, where they are living in a kind of different world, the mission killer is fully aware of what's going on and fully understands they've made a decision. Okay. Like I said, conscious of thoughts and desires, in touch with the reality, still quick kills because they are on a mission. It's not something that they get great satisfaction out of. If they feel like they have created a mission for themselves and they need to accomplish that. And as it states there at the bottom, they can be disorganized or organized, but typically visionary, as stated previously, is almost always going to be disorganized, whereas your mission, though it can be both, more of them tend to fall on the side of organized, because there is some organization as to deciding what type of victim they're going to go after, how they can best, for lack of better terms, hunt or trap or capture someone who fits that description. So just to verify, I got about a minute left here. I just want to say you have visionary. You are well aware of those factors. You can read those there. typically disorganized, mental issues, not in touch with reality, and hears voices or visions telling them what to do. Mission comes up with their own ideas, missions, in touch with reality, and typically organized. So that finishes those two. I will come back and talk about the other types in another video. So until then, I will be studying, be doing your reading, and I'll be back shortly.